Let me make sure I can share my slides, Renee.
Mhm.
Let me do this
We are
and do
live on YouTube.
this. I want that.
Yes, we can see them.
Okay. And it's the right view.
Mhm.
Okay. Perfect. All right.
Thank you all for being on today. Appreciate it.
No problem. Can you,
Oh.
timeline, you said there was like somebody was doing 15 minutes and then we're on for what? And how long is the total time frame of this?
Total time
You're
frame, we're
muted,
I'm
Amanda.
sorry. We're up for an hour total. We'll have
Okay.
about you all will start at about probably, I don't know, 11:18, give or take 30 seconds, and then you all have basically till, 11:55-ish.
Yeah, but we don't, if we get done early, that's okay
Sure,
too.
yeah.
Okay.
But,
I mean, well, we'll probably be a little longer than that, Billy, because I'm going to ask you about that controlled burn training.
okay, yeah. So maybe
It was great.
11:20-ish.
Oh, were you there too?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, you both can be talking about it then if you want.
It was really good. It really has made me think about how to use that, from a conservation perspective, how that kind of blends in. I used it as I like created a scenario about it for a presentation on Friday already.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Hey, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do Wings of Kentucky first? We won't mention the control burn training. And then after DJ gets done, and Billy, when you pop back on, I'll say, hey, we had a lot of questions last week about when I said you were at the control burn training, and Amanda was on it too. So then you two both can pop up and talk a little bit and then about the controlled training. And then Amanda, you can go into, we can say, hey, we've got a new guest, woohoo, first timer, and then, go
Okay.
into that. Does that work?
Be fun.
It just seems to flow a little bit better if we have both of you on that way.
Yep,
Okay.
no worries.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I'm
All
easy
right.
like
I'll go
Sunday
off
morning.
camera.
All right. We got 4 minutes.
The waiting's the hard part.
It is. 9 people in the room. That's awesome. Especially since it's early. You want to let them in?
Sure.
And I'm going to go ahead and get this recording going since we're doing it differently and I've not done it that way before. Oh, that was easy. Okay. It's the same. Never mind. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it. Hopefully you all aren't getting any storms. We had several cracks of thunder here. I was like, oh, no, don't do that right before our show.
Yeah. Yeah, I know March is coming in like a lion, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is. It really is. That means it goes out like a lamb, though, right?
Yeah, I did something.
It's supposed to work.
I know. Where's your almanac at, right?
Right.
I think this was the last year they were printing the Farmer's Almanac.
Is it? How
Yeah,
come?
I don't know. I don't know.
There are two Farmer's Almanacs. Did you know
No,
this?
no,
Oh.
help
There's
me.
the old
Educate me.
Farmer's Almanac
Yeah.
and they I don't know, something else. So one of them did quit printing, but the other is still in
Okay.
business.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I did a little panic
I
about
know.
that.
I saw
I
that a
know.
while
Because
back. I
it's
was
been
like, what?
around for
Yeah.
Ever?
Yeah, there are two different
That's a show.
I think it is, we could have oh shoot, the Planting by the Stars.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
Sarah,
I don't know. You need to send me that name when you
I'll work
think
on
of it.
that. She gave a seminar. She was Delia has her
Uh-oh.
Delia knows.
Delia
Oh,
knows stuff. Tell us, Delia.
that would
What,
be
what you
really
got, Delia? I allowed you to talk.
It's Sarah Hall.
Yes, thank
Sarah
you.
Hall.
Thank you,
Yeah.
That
Delia.
Maria. I have that book. It's very good.
It's
Awesome.
amazing. It
That
it
sounds
really
really
is.
cool. We need to do
Hmm.
that.
Oh, excellent. Look at our Woodford County Board agent coming strong,
Woohoo!
man. Our county agents rock, man.
They do. They're awesome.
They know so
Especially,
much.
yeah.
Very
Well,
cool.
Thanks, Delia, for being the second part of my brain today.
Teamwork, right?
Teamwork.
One team, one dream. We're in this together.
One
That's
brain.
it.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll piece it together.
Hive mind. There we go.
Cool. Now that sounds like a really neat segment. We might be able to do that.
Hey, I know there's so much cool stuff about.
There's so much cool stuff. I know when we
know.
first started this, like, oh, will we run out of topics? Well, 6 years
know.
later, not yet. You know?
But I mean, yeah, they're just so much to learn. Yeah, I love it.
All right.
This show helps me learn all the time too.
You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, awesome. Hi, I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. We've got a really neat edition today, but Billy, do you know what a woodcock is?
It's a pretty cool bird, I think.
It is. You're going to find out a whole lot more about it, though.
Yeah, I love it. We got our Wings of Kentucky with Dr. DJ McNeil. He is so awesome. We really appreciate that. You know, as always, we have to get a recording of him because he teaches right now. But he has put together a great segment for you all, and look forward to that. We also have Miss Amanda Gumbert, or Dr. Amanda Gumbert, with us, with a special guest. Nicole, is it? Yeah, Nicole Clements is going to be with us as well. She's a first timer. We always love having a first timer guest, but she's with the Bank Lick watershed up there, and they've been doing, that's in northern Kentucky, and they've been doing a lot to try to look out for that watershed. So we're going to learn from Nicole about some of the work that they're doing up there. Nice little segment with her and Dr. Gumbert. So really excited about both those segments we got today, but we're more excited about having you all with us, right? I mean, it's all about you all and us learning together. So if you've got any questions for our presenters, please use the chat function. And if you're on YouTube or a podcast listener, thank you very much. But you can hit us up via email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can respond with you that way. But Renee, glad to be with you on this kind of soggy day here.
Soggy day, yeah. Well, you know, Billy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I did mention last week where you were.
Oh, I know. I hated missing last week, but yeah, it was a good show. I did catch up with it. But.
Good. And I found out that Dr. Amanda Gumbert was there too. And so maybe in a little bit after our Wings of Kentucky, you all can kind of talk about a little bit what you did during that control burn training. We had some questions, and really people were really interested in it. So I thought maybe you and her could like just give a, you know. I
would love to, because it's a great opportunity for many of our folks out there. This was a great training we did for many of us in Extension, but yeah, we can talk more about that a little bit later. But glad to have you all with us today, and glad to have our show. Yeah,
definitely. So let's go ahead and get started with Wings of Kentucky.
All right, I'll go ahead and get that queued up.
Okay, folks, welcome to another Wings of Kentucky. I'm DJ McNeil with the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources at the University of Kentucky. So I'm thrilled to share with you guys today some information and background and identification tips and general life history information about one of my favorite birds, the American woodcock, Scolopax minor. Now, this is a very cool bird, and for a variety of reasons. And the reason why I bring to you in March, specifically information about the American woodcock, is this is the time of year we as birders and ecologists and just naturalists more broadly tend to see the American woodcock, because this species is currently engaging in its famous courtship display, sometimes called the Sky Dance. So if you go out looking for the American woodcock, you're going to want to go to an early successional shrubland or a wetland that's got a strong woody component to it. Not a mature forest, but we're looking for something shrubby, perhaps with a strong grass component as well. And you go right around sunset, and that's when you listen for the distinctive call of the American woodcock that sounds a little bit like a frog, but is often described as the woodcock saying the word peent. So let's have a look at that courtship display. Oh, that'll be on the next slide, pardon me. So before we get into the courtship display, let's take a moment and just discuss what a woodcock even is. So it's in the shorebird family. So this is our American woodcock. Compare that to a more typical shorebird like the short-billed dowitcher here, you can see a pretty striking resemblance between the two birds, but some very obvious differences for the American woodcock. The short-billed dowitcher and many other shorebirds like to spend most of their time near the water, hence the name shorebird. The woodcock is sort of the odd man out in that he doesn't do that. Here's that funny courtship display. And if you listen, you can hear almost a little hiccup right before he does the peent. And that hiccup is usually only something that you can hear when you're fairly close to the bird, but they basically always do it. So his courtship display is going to consist of two parts. First, him standing on the ground, and mind you, only males do this, standing on the ground and performing this peent component of the display. After he's done this for a while, a minute or two perhaps, sometimes less, he launches up into the air and does the aerial component of the display. Now, this isn't a great video, but you can kind of see the woodcock appearing and disappearing on the screen there, doing the aerial courtship display. But this figure shows what happens. The male is peanting from down here, and then when he does the display, he flies up, gets higher and higher and higher, and then as he's up at the very apex, he wanders around in the sky and then tumbles back down to the earth right where he started to do it all over again. Listen carefully to the noises that the woodcock makes during this display. Those sounds are not produced vocally. For a long time, ornithologists had no clue whether this was a vocal or otherwise mechanical sound. We now know that this sound is produced by three primary flight feathers that are very narrow on the tips of the male's wings. So every chirp that you hear that sounds like some beautiful songbird is actually a wing flap produced by the male. The female also has these three skinny primary flight feathers, but they're much wider and more typical on a female woodcock than they are on a male because she doesn't need them for display. Now, here's our woodcock again, and here's that more typical shorebird, the short-billed dowitcher, just for comparison. The other bird that I'd like to bring into the conversation here is the Wilson snipe. For those who have heard about the sort of camping style snipe hunts, you may be surprised to learn that a snipe is a real thing. The Wilson snipe is actually another species of shorebird, although I always heard the legend of hunting snipes with a bag and a stick. This is another huntable bird. I don't think you typically hunt them that way, that people may confuse with the American woodcock, in the same family and bears a certain resemblance to the American woodcock. But there are some really important differences between the Wilson snipe and the American woodcock, which are two spring displaying shorebirds that are often found in, let's say, away from shores. The first thing is the snipe does produce a non-vocal sound while displaying. However, the snipe produces this noise with these skinny outer tail feathers that it has on each side of the tail, rather than the tips of its wings. Let's listen to that very eerie noise produced by the Wilson snipe, sometimes described as a winnowing sound. So that's produced entirely with the tail. The Wilson snipe also produces a lot of other vocalizations that you really don't hear a woodcock doing. The woodcock has that loud peent, but very few other loud vocalizations. This is a very common call that you'll hear Wilson snipe doing, and woodcock never make a sound anything like this. And one last thing on that, Comparing the Wilson snipe and the woodcock visually, there are a bunch of different field marks, but two that I like to tell people are look on the back of the head. The Wilson snipe only has lines that go with the grain of the bird, while the woodcock has a couple of little bars that kind of go against the grain on the back of the head. On the flip side, take a look at the flank. American woodcock has a pretty much a clean flank with no streaking on it, or barring, I should say, whereas the Wilson snipe has a heavily barred flank. There are other characteristics you can use, but those are a couple of really quick gimme characteristics that help you discern the American woodcock and the Wilson snipe. Now, let's explore some other aspects of the American woodcock ecology. So as I mentioned, if you want to go find this bird right now, I recommend going to an early successional shrubland or a grassland that has a shrubby component, or some sort of wetland that has shrubs and grass. That is because the American woodcock is an obligate of early successional communities, such as this one. They want to have areas with saplings and shrubs and little openings for their with grass and forbs, so that the male can do his display. But they also want to have thick tangles of woody vegetation for the female to nest in. Now, some other things that are special about the American woodcock is take a look at that skull and the head in general. The thing that sort of sticks out to me, making the woodcock appear very different than other birds, is how far back on the head the eye is. It's a really unusual thing in the bird world. So just take a look almost at this very huge space between the eye and the bill. We don't really see that in a lot of other birds. On the skull, that's basically this whole area right here. So why does the woodcock have its eye so far back on its head? Well, take a look at this bird here. This bird is engaging in its typical foraging, where it sticks its whole bill down into the soil and probes for worms. The bill on the woodcock is highly nervous. They can actually feel with their bill, and it's slightly prehensile, which means they can open the bill tip while the bill is closed, while their mouth is closed. Really remarkable, but that doesn't explain why the eye is so far back on the head. Look at this guy. When he sticks his head down into the soil, he can still keep his eyes pointed up and watching for predators. A very remarkable adaptation. In fact, take a look here. This is the ear hole on the woodcock, and the ear hole is actually in front of the eye hole, showing you just how bizarre this bird truly is. Okay, reproduction. The species, as I mentioned, is a shorebird, and almost all North American shorebirds have this very interesting quirk that they lay 4 eggs. So that is true for a woodcock, that's true for a killdeer, that's true for snipe, and most other shorebirds. These are the eggs here, this kind of tan with brown speckles. The woodcock female doesn't make a whole lot of a nest. She mostly just lays those eggs right there and relies on the natural camouflage of the eggs to protect them. The eggs are mostly going to be incubated by the female, or they're only incubated by the female, I should say, but most of the time the female is sitting on them. The reason I say that is that woodcock female, she is excellent camouflage for those eggs, more than even just the eggs themselves, making them very difficult to detect. So 4 eggs, that means generally 4 chicks. And here's an example of an American woodcock female with 4 little chicks. So these are probably just a day or 2 old at most. And this is a type of development strategy in birds that we call precocial. So precocial would be in contrast to something like a robin or a songbird that's altricial. Precocial meaning the bird is fluffy, its eyes are open, it can sort of feed itself, it can run around on its own. It still relies on its parents for warmth and protection, but it's able to do a lot of things all on its own. Again, contrast that with a songbird, which is altricial. They're born blind, naked, helpless. They have to be fed everything by their parents, etc. But you got to admit, those little woodcock babies sure are cute. One thing I love about the little babies is they have a long beak, but it's not anywhere near as long as the parent's beak, which makes sense, right? Because it would be pretty hard to hatch out of an egg when you have that huge beak that the adult woodcock has. So March is the time of year we tend to see the most woodcock. This is iNaturalist data, and you can see we have a very pronounced period in March when people go out observing these beautiful birds, engaging in their reproductive displays. As they continue through the breeding season, fewer and fewer observations occur till the late summer when they're very seldom seen. And then we see another bump in the fall. This is corresponding to fall migration. The vast majority of these records that we see on iNaturalist would be, and I have pictures of it coming up, would be due to window strike. There are a few hunting records on iNaturalist, but I see a lot of window strikes in spring and in fall. But aside from hunting, window strikes are the main way that we observe woodcock in the fall, sadly speaking. Speaking of hunting, the woodcock is a widely hunted game bird, a species that is very much appreciated by hunters across the eastern United States. Maybe not quite as sought after as ruffed grouse are, but many hunters love hunting woodcock and eating woodcock. They're not a very big bird, but apparently they're quite tasty. I've never had the pleasure of eating one myself. Usually these are hunted with pointing dogs like English setters, although of course this looks like a lab here retrieving that woodcock. Usually a pointing dog like an English setter or an English pointer will find that bird, point at it, and then either flush it themselves with a command from the hunter, or the hunter will flush it and shoot the bird. And if you have a really good dog, they may even retrieve that bird for you. Now, the woodcock is declining across its entire range. This is the central portion of the woodcock range, and this is the eastern portion of the woodcock range. And we see declines in both regions that are steady and persistent. We've seen just continuous declines in American woodcock populations over time. And we're pretty confident that hunting is not one of the driving factors behind woodcock declines. In fact, likely the opposite is true. By allowing woodcock hunting through various governmental programs, this garners conservation support for woodcock to develop management areas and habitat conservation implementation to benefit woodcock. What is driving the population decline of the woodcock across its range are factors like, as I mentioned, window strike. We see a lot of woodcock window strikes. These are images from iNaturalist, as well as the loss of its breeding habitat. So I mentioned before that it requires this shrubby, brushy, early successional forest or shrublands, but without proper management, those ecological communities become mature forests through time, and this is no longer suitable for American woodcock. When we have all of our ecological shrublands turning into mature forest, that leads to the direct loss of our woodcock. And one thing that we can do, and there are a variety of initiatives that have picked up and gained momentum over the last few years, is implementing forest management. This takes a mature forest and regenerates it into something healthy, where the saplings and shrubs have a time to regenerate. Within 50 to 80 years, depending on the type of forest, it'll be mature again. But for the 10 to 15 years or so, while that stand is in an early successional state, it provides habitat for American woodcock. With that, we will leave it there, and I look forward to seeing you all again next time on our April Wings of Kentucky.
That was always interesting. I really love watching all these different birds that he brings about each and every month. It's really neat to see all the different kinds.
Oh yeah, loved Wings of Kentucky. Thank you, Dr. McNeil. Really do appreciate your efforts there. And yeah, what a cool bird, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
and unfortunately, so many of our birds are really struggling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So being good stewards of our resources can help our bird friends. So
Yeah.
be good stewards, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of friends,
Yes, our
Hey,
great
wait, I have a
friend.
question. Have you all
Okay.
ever seen the woodcocks do that? Do their little flight pattern?
mm-mm.
It's incredible. Like
Is it?
it is so because it does that little peeping and all that stuff,
Mhm.
and then it takes off, and then as it flutters down, you're like, this bird is like crashing into the ground and it's gonna kill itself, all for, you know,
All for love.
all for
Love,
love.
yes, hey, it's a
Things we
powerful
do for
motivator.
love.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's really, really neat. So I remember the first time I saw it was, I think, at a wildlife management area in Carter County.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. So highly
Very cool.
recommend folks go some place where they can see that. Like, it was right at dusk. Yeah, it was neat.
That
Very
sounds really cool. Yeah.
good.
All right. So
Awesome.
speaking of that, last week, I know Billy, you weren't on, but I had several people that had questions because I told them you were on
Right.
a control burn training,
Yeah.
and people asked questions about it, and I was like, oh, well, maybe we can get Billy to talk just a smidge about it this week. So I wasn't expecting a presentation, but look at you.
No presentation. Just wanted to share kind of the website with everyone, what we're talking about. And I think, let me make sure I've got the right one. I think I got that link for you all as well in the chat. But yeah, Dr. Gumbert and I had a chance to visit or do this workshop last week with a number of other extension colleagues. And it's what we're trying to do with this is try to increase our knowledge of controlled burns and prescribed fire here in Kentucky so that we can answer a lot of questions, because I get a lot of questions from landowners about, is it right for my land or not? And it always gets down to your objectives. But, Dr. Gumbert, I know you're a landowner as well as an extension professional. So it was neat having you be there and have both perspectives for sure.
Yeah, it was, as everybody probably on this call knows or listening, fire's been a part of landscape management for eons. And then we kind of came in as humans and got nervous and said, oh, we shouldn't be burning things. But it was really fascinating to learn, all the ins and outs of how prescribed fire is done on the landscape, and really thinking about too, um, areas where, on our private lands as well as public lands where it is a really great management tool. Um, you know, there's times where we have ecosystems that invasives come in and can get out of control, and it's really overwhelming to try to think about how we can overcome that. And fire might not be the tool for every spot, but it is a tool in the toolbox. So, really interesting to learn more about it.
Yeah, and this workshop is available to landowners and to the public. And we happened to put together one just for kind of folks in extension, was our primary target with our workshop. So they can do custom workshops if you can get a group. The limit is 30 folks is the max you can have, and you can see kind of the topics that they cover during this course. And if you're a landowner or somebody that interacts with landowners or wants to kind of increase your knowledge about it, I would strongly encourage you to attend this workshop. There are a couple of other ones. I just wanted to draw your attention to a few more coming. If you're out in Christian County, we got one down there on March 7th. Rockcastle County's got one on April 10th, and they are setting more dates. So if that's something you're interested in, follow that link I put in the chat, and you too could attend one of these programs and increase your knowledge and help us all increase our knowledge about prescribed fire here in the state, how we can use it as a management tool, and maybe when we shouldn't use it as well. And I think Dr. Gumbert, I think our extension colleagues got a lot out of it, and I was really glad we did it. And a big thanks to the Kentucky Prescribed Fire Council, who we've had on here numerous times, and specifically Mr. Jacob Stewart, who kind of led the program for us. So yeah, I thought it was great, and I would encourage you all to get involved too if it's something you're interested in.
Looks like we've had several comments of some people that have sent an email to be a Kentucky Burn Boss, and someone loves the wing segment. Well, thank you very much. They wanted to know if they went out to WMA or other public area to take a walk with hopes to see a woodcock in action. What locations are recommended? Do you have any?
I guess Yatesville, was Yatesville Lake a wildlife management area one?
I think just thinking about what Dr. McNeil said, just a place that has that shrubby habitat, like you're not wanting to be deep in the woods because and this is just me off of memory, so please, I am not a
we put you on the
woodcock
spot.
biologist or expert, but like what I remember where we were, it was like we just pulled off the road and kind of walked down into this little drainage area that was kind of shrubby and weedy. And so and then we're listening for them, and so that's where you know, I don't know. The person I was with might have already been
Yeah.
scoping it out and knew they were in that
Oh.
area. But there, you know, there might be some online communities that are chattering about where you might find these birds at this point, you know, as we're, you know, getting into that migratory part of the year, you know, and the a lot of bird activity for love out there
There you
going
go.
on as,
Yeah.
as the weather gets
Spring,
warmer.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we want spring to spring.
Yeah, go ahead and get
Definitely.
sprung. You know, I know my wife is an avid birder, and there's a few different kind of groups out there that kind of keep track with, you know, when there's bird sightings in the area. You know, I can't get directly point you to one of them, but I think, you know, looking for local Audubon societies and chapters like that, they often have like a little group chat or blog that they'll post on their social media channels. So, you know, the Cornell, also a lab of ornithology, they have a lot of great resources. And, you know, some of those apps will basically show you what's being seen in the area as well. So there's some ways to kind of find some local for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I think you can also use iNaturalist to find that stuff locally
Yep.
as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, take advantage of those resources out there, folks. And
Yeah.
go see a woodcock on your own, okay?
Yeah. I feel way out of my lane right now.
I know Dr. McNeil's like, no.
Clifford
No.
County Conservation District is also hosting, I'm assuming, a controlled burn training is what they're talking about on
Okay.
April 11th. So
Awesome. Yeah. So
really
yeah,
close to
they're
here.
popping up all over the place, and you can get your very own if you get your group together for sure.
And then someone said if you're in northern Kentucky, the Boone County Extension Nature Center had some last night.
Awesome. There you go. See.
There we go.
Yeah.
Boone County
Very
Arboretum
cool.
across the road as well. So there you go. There's some folks just letting you know where to go.
Man, I love our audience,
I
man.
do
They are
too.
so engaged. Yeah, it's great. It's really great. So awesome. Well,
Awesome.
Dr. Gumbert, I know you got some other stuff
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about too. I know we got a special guest here today, a first timer
First-timer.
with us as well.
Yes, we're so
yeah.
excited to have Nicole.
Welcome, Nicole. We get
Welcome.
so excited for first timer guest. So glad to have you on From the Woods today, and thank you for the work you're doing up there in northern Kentucky.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you can tell, Nicole, that we kind of get a little sidetracked. We're all over the place, but we are
Well,
an
I was just
excitable group.
adding a note that we
Yeah.
have them up here too in Morning View,
There you
Kentucky,
go.
in Cannon County. So
Yes.
they were spotted, I think, last night or the night before up there too.
Awesome.
There you go.
Cancel the
See?
rest of the show. We're going to
All right,
talk
we're just talking about
woodcock
woodcock.
sightings
Woodcock
for
all
the rest.
show.
Yeah.
All the time.
Although water is pretty important to all
It
of us as
is.
well.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So.
Yes, thank you for recognizing that.
So we will let you two get on with your
Yeah,
segment.
looking
Otherwise, we'll
forward
be
to
talking about birds the whole segment.
Yeah. No. All right. Let's hear
Awesome.
about water.
Let's hear about water.
Well, thank you. And we are very excited to have Nicole Clements with us today. She's going to be my guest for the next few minutes, and we're going to talk water. And we can throw in a little wildlife reference here and there too, Nicole, as it will be. But Nicole is the watershed coordinator for the Banklick Creek watershed, which is in northern Kentucky. And Nicole, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Can you tell everybody a little about yourself before we get into the details of the watershed?
Sure, yeah, no problem. I've been doing water resources work for about 20 years now. Kind of just fell into it. My degree's in biology. And when I got done with school, I was working for an engineering firm that wanted to do wetland work. But at the same time, some regulations were coming down from the EPA that had to deal with stormwater management in small and medium-sized communities. And so kind of got pulled onto that team and learned stormwater and regulatory compliance issues and things like that relating to stormwater management. So I kind of just, that stuck with me over the years. And so after that, I worked for a stormwater utility that actually did more regulatory compliance and got more into holistic watershed management topics. Also picked up wastewater issues, sewer overflow issues, things like that. So nowadays, I'm working for the Banklick Watershed Council. That's a nonprofit. So I feel like, I've really kind of found my calling in working for a nonprofit. I can use my knowledge and serve as boots on the ground. And so I can make, tangible benefits in my community. That really, it allows me to the freedom to advocate more, I would say, being on the nonprofit side of things now. So I really enjoy that and have been doing that for about 10 years now.
Awesome. I think it's interesting how watershed professionals find their way into the work that they do. And you can get here from a variety of different pathways, and everything, reflects back in the water. So it's everything, I think, is applicable to it. So thanks for sharing that. We had Brian Storrs on several episodes ago, and if folks were listening, then you might remember that Brian is a what we call a basin coordinator here in Kentucky. And so Brian covers a big section of waterways and specifically the Licking River. He's the Licking River Basin Coordinator. And Nicole, you're working in a watershed that is within the Licking River Basin. And so Banklick Creek, as we've mentioned. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Banklick Creek specifically, so we can kind of equate ourselves with where you are geographically?
Sure, sure. I'm up in northern Kentucky, so just outside of Cincinnati metro areas. The Banklick Creek is about 19 miles long, and it flows northwards towards Cincinnati area. It then bends and does a quick right-hand turn into the Licking River. And so that's why I'm part of Brian's group, is that Banklick is a tributary to the Licking. And then it's about 4 miles from where the Banklick joins the Licking, where our water flows up the Licking River and then joins the Ohio River. So it's 19 miles long, about 58 square miles of area. The way in which the Banklick has developed is kind of interesting, and it drives a lot of our issues. Because the lower reaches are so close to the city, those areas were developed first. And so we have highly urbanized areas down in the lower reaches of the watershed. And then as development progressed, it kind of moved up towards the headwaters. And so we kind of have this dynamic of, we have urban areas down in the low-lying areas, we have a central area that's kind of suburban development, and then our headwaters has typically been more rural agricultural communities, but those are under such heavy development pressures. Those are largely converting over to single-family residential or to like industrial development, that kind of thing. So the Banklick kind of runs the gamut of water quality issues, everything from ag to suburban to urban issues. And so one of the things that, we deal with is obviously the runoff, polluted runoff coming into the creek, and we want to address that. But as you can imagine, if you have development in the low-lying areas first, and then you have development up in headwater areas, that headwater development, when you add those impervious surfaces, the roadways, the sidewalks, the houses, the rooftops, all of those generate more stormwater. So that water that was once sinking in and becoming groundwater and driving the base flows for our creek now goes into a parking lot, maybe a catch basin, and is shot into a pipe and then into the creek. And so it pushes a whole lot more water into the system, and it pushes that water into the system with a lot more energy and power and flows than it would have had in natural conditions. So what ends up happening is that additional water into the system creates downstream issues. Obviously, more water, you get more runoff, more energy in the system, more erosion of that system. And so what we see is our creeks getting deeper and wider, causing more flooding downstream, that kind of thing. So because northern Kentucky is so hilly, our development happens a lot along our creeks. So our roads, our sewers, our utilities, our infrastructure are kind of placed in those areas. So obviously when you get erosion coming in and causing those changes in the creek, it can undercut and undermine some of our community infrastructure, becomes very expensive to fix.
Yeah, I mean these are issues that we see in a lot of urban systems. Unfortunately, sometimes in our urban systems, we start to see like that hard armoring of the stream banks, and that sometimes can create more problems, but it is a short-term fix. But you all have done a lot of work in Banklick Creek. I mean, for I don't know, it feels like a couple decades. I've been hearing about, Banklick Creek is just really doing some progressive work. Or maybe it's just consistently. You all have really been at it for a while and just consistently doing projects there. So can you tell us, you mentioned a little bit about infrastructure, like on the edge of the streams, and we do see this a lot in streams are the lowest point in the landscape. And so those, especially sewer lines often run parallel to streams because we're gravity feeding that's, and then pumping out to a water treatment plant. But you have some examples of some work or specific problems and projects you've done in Banklet Creek. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, speaking to our longevity, like we were listed as an impaired waterway because of all the issues that I mentioned. And so the Watershed Council was formed like 20 years ago, back in
Mhm.
2002. So that's why you've probably heard about us, is that we've been around doing the work. The reason why we had to form the Watershed Council, though, is because there's 13 different jurisdictions within the watershed. And so for us to create, those changes and that we wanted to, and to get money in to do some of these projects, the Watershed Council was necessary because we could work across jurisdictions and that kind of thing.
So let me interrupt you for a second, because I think this is an important piece of thinking about watershed management. Is when you're saying those jurisdictions, are you meaning little towns, townships, county, like the
Yeah.
municipalities within your watershed?
Yeah, we have 2
Yeah.
counties and then 11 different little cities up here in northern
Okay.
Kentucky. Yeah, Kenton County, we have a ton of these little cities that different jurisdictions that we deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that really makes it complicated from a watershed manager perspective of who owns which piece and who controls which piece and how many different people you have to talk to get permission to do things.
Right. And water doesn't recognize boundaries, so it doesn't
Yeah.
care where it's flowing from.
Right.
And so, we can work in one area, but it could have impacts here, but not here, so having a watershed council was our way to be able to like work across those boundaries.
Excellent. So, but one of the things that you have talked about is really, evidence of a stream migrating across the landscape, and so tell us how you all address that, because what you did was a project that kind of spurred a lot of work statewide too.
Right, right. So when we had all that headwater development pushing more water in the system and causing such erosion issues, what we saw is the streams really changing their behavior as a result of that additional flows. The streams will evolve and accommodate for the water that's put into the system. Well, it goes where it wants to, not necessarily where we want it to go. So we were starting to see streams move anywhere from like 70 feet in one direction or another based on all the different the water that was getting added into there. And so there was impacts happening to the sewer systems, our roadways, bridges. We have lots of pictures of roads falling into the creek because they got undermined because of the Banklet Creek. So we partner with the sanitation district up here, and they are actually pretty good partners in helping us research and understand what's happening in Banklet Creek. And because their sewers were so threatened, they actually started a research program many years ago, collecting data on those creek changes and how the creeks were changing as a result to the flows. They call it hydromodification, right? How the hydrology within the watershed changes, and then the resulting longitudinal changes within the channel, right? So they did a ton of research to understand that process. And basically what we've come to understand is, the creeks can hold a certain amount or manage a certain amount of flow until it starts eroding. And so we developed our stormwater program to begin addressing those erosive forces within the creek. And can we hold more water back and keep it below those levels where we know that erosion is happening? And so that's the goal of our stormwater program is, we look at different stormwater retention and detention basins that are within the watershed that we can maybe go back and modify and bring up to current engineering standards so that the release rate is not causing erosion in the creek. The other thing that we do is we've installed a wetland in our watershed. And the purpose of that wetland is to basically reconnect the creek to its floodplain. This particular area that we worked on, about a quarter of the watershed flows through that channel, but it had 6 to 8 foot tall vertical banks. So if you imagine when the creek levels rise and the rain comes, that water is trapped in that channel, and that's a lot of energy, a lot of flows that just can't get out. And so that's, really is what's driving that erosion. And when you have that much erosion, you're getting sediment coming into the creek and causing water quality issues and things like that. So what we did at this wetland project is we took that vertical bank and we laid it back and reconnected the creek to the floodplain. So now,
can I interrupt you for a second, because you just said all kinds of really cool engineering words. But I'm like,
Yes.
my mind's going, oh my gosh, this is exciting. And like for those of us who are really geeky watershed folks, for like this is all making sense.
Yes,
But
sorry.
what I'm hearing though, and is that sometimes this kind of description of water in a channel, that's kind of what we've designed our cities to be in a way, because from a residential perspective, we want that water in its channel. We want it to stay there. We don't want it out on the landscape because that might mean a wet basement, or that might mean my house is flooded. So I just want to point out that like nature and development and what we want as humans, like it doesn't really see eye to eye, and so you have a really tough job, I think, of navigating what the stream needs and how it's going to behave, and what the tolerance is for the people who live nearby. So I think it's a really cool thing. So go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I was
My
just,
spiel, yeah.
yeah,
No, but most definitely. And I think that we need to manage water within our community. And the water is seen as, we need to get it out in a way. But there's impacts for that, right? You need to think of what's happening downstream. And I think that we sometimes forget that the water's got to go somewhere. And so when I'm talking to some of our local officials and things like that, one of the points that I try to make is it's like, we need to approach stormwater, our creeks, our rivers, as an essential part of our community infrastructure. Think of it like roadways. You've got to have a way to move traffic through your community. Similarly, we have water. We're going to have more water as time goes on and as, storms change and whatnot. We need to have a safe way to convey water through our community. We need to be intentional about where it goes, and to make sure that A, people are safe, and B, that the creeks are not going to cause harm or flooding or things for people downstream. So it's really kind of a mindset of, how do we manage it within our community, balancing people's needs and at the same time making room for the river, if you will.
yeah. And so you all did this by creating some wetlands, what you're talking about. And for those who were part of the conversation when we talked with Brian Stores, he talked about green sinks. And I think your all's project was kind of the mothership of the green sinks effort. And so tell us a little more about that. You said you created a wetland. Um, and in watershed management speak, it's like these off-channel wetlands and it's storing water. What kind of property did you use to do that? Does this go back to your ability to navigate all these municipalities? And, how did that work?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate that this property was a conservation property that was donated to us by the landowner. We do land acquisition and green space preservation along the creek as part of our mission. And so this property is part of a 47-acre conservation area that was donated to us back in 2004, I think. And so we own the property. So we were able to put together kind of some ideas of, okay, how can we better use this property to offload some of those erosive velocities that we're seeing in the creek, and B, create some habitat, create some water quality features. The wetlands have a way of, as the water comes up and spills into these wetlands, those wetlands and the plants and bugs and stuff all in that wetland will help also clean the water as part of it. So this stormwater project, yeah, that's kind of the OG of Brian's Green Sinks. This was the original, and it was highly successful. It requires minimal maintenance because it is passive. The water just comes up, spills into the wetland until it gets full, and so it's a pretty successful project that we've been able to put together there.
Awesome. So is this one of your favorite practices? Do you think this is a good solution for most watersheds, or for your watershed in particular?
I think this is a good solution. It's a very good solution if you can find the space for it. If you are working in an urbanized area, that's where it can become challenging because you have development happening right up to the creeks. So sometimes finding space is difficult. We had this space, so we were able to do this project. But I would say, like, probably for the Watershed Council, our favorite projects are probably the land conservation projects and green space management, or green space acquisition, I should say. Um, because when you're in an urban area, there's not a whole lot of green spaces left. And so if we are trying to get the creek to recover and be healthier, we want to create sustainable long-term solutions, right? And so if we are working to get the pollution out, we need to, kind of think forward and protect that property or protect that creek in perpetuity. And part of that, we call it the riparian corridor, which is the areas right along the creek. If we can keep those with trees and keep the shade over the creek and keep the water cool, that has huge benefits for water quality. So we see land conservation as a core, essential long-term solution. The other benefit that has is that because we're in an urban area, there's not a whole lot of public places to access the creek or have outdoor recreation in our area. And so it's kind of our way of cultivating connectivity, getting
Yeah.
people down on the creek. If they get down there and they understand it, maybe they'll do a little bit more to protect it and to keep it healthy and, not dump trash or tires or whatnot into it. So we like those projects where we can, create green space, and protect the canopy cover, and then, create public access and trails and things like that. So that's one of the things that we like to do most.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the part about, having people connected to the waterway. I think that's a really common challenge in urban areas, when you're talking about watersheds and creeks and streams, is if people can't see it, then they really don't think about it or they don't think it's there. I've done some work in kind of urbanized headwater areas, and people can't see it because the creek is in a pipe underground. And so they really, unless they're attuned to, the waterways locally, then they really just don't. They're like, what? There's a creek here? I don't ever see a creek. So it's important, I think, to have people make those personal connections.
Yeah, and we deal with that a lot. Like it's kind of an afterthought, or it's kind of just, been neglected for so long that people forget it's there. And so, that's part of our goal is to get people to see the creek again and get people to appreciate it. And, we have this vision of, maybe at some point, getting it restored. I mean, it's cleaner than it's ever been. But, getting people down there, getting it to become like a community amenity. We're working with some trails nonprofits, and they're proposing like a greenway along Banklick Creek, which I think would be like our ultimate dream. Is like, okay,
Yeah.
if we can get people to embrace this to the point where it becomes a part of our community, like winding through, connecting all these different jurisdictions, I think that would be kind of the end all be all for us if we could achieve that.
Yeah. I mean, you've kind of mentioned some of the biggest challenges that you all have worked on. I'd say predominantly just stormwater runoff, and then lack of knowledge of general, the public about it. Are there any other things that you think of when you're thinking of like the biggest challenges that you all have in your watershed? Or opportunities? Maybe we can, jump over to opportunities that you've thought about, that you are still, ripe for harvesting.
Yeah, when I tell people that I do stream restoration, they think that I, plant trees along the creek and do all it. Sometimes it's just not as showy as that.
Right.
We've learned our lessons the hard way up here, on just some of the practices that we've put in have just gotten blown away. And so that's kind of one of the challenges, is where do you start with long-term stream health and restoration? And so, there's a stream function pyramid where, it talks about how you build a healthy creek, and the fundamental of a healthy creek is the hydrology, which is how the water runs off the land, and the hydraulics, which is how the water proceeds through the creek. And so that's kind of where, we've put in trees, and like these big, beautiful, gorgeous trees along a park. And we got a big fall rain the next week, and it just lifted them and carried them off down the stream, and they were gone.
It's
And
so shit just shatters your heart.
oh, it just, you put so much effort into something, and just to see it wash away, and you see that and you just think, okay, well, we can't keep doing that way. We got to come up with get down to basics and cause the fundamental root of the problem, And so that's why I talk so much about stormwater, is that it's restoring a more natural flow regime within the creek. And so then we can start building the habitat and getting the critters and the bugs and the fish back in the creek once they're not getting washed out all the time. So that's probably the biggest challenge I think that we really have to deal with up here, and getting Bank Lake back to where it should be.
Yeah, I mean, the restoration projects I've been a part of, it seems a little bit like Murphy's Law, that as soon as you have bare landscape or new, freshly planted vegetation, that there is going to be a big storm event that comes and blows everything out. And some of it, I think, is just a reminder that, we can engineer natural spaces, but that humans aren't always in control of how that works. We can have negative influences, we can have positive influences, but sometimes that we have to be patient and do, just like you said, kind of build through those elements of restoration. Um, well, I am curious about what some of your next steps are. You all have done so much work in Bank Lake Creek, and you're a leader in and an exemplar for others who are doing watershed management. So tell us what's coming up next, or what your hopes are for the future of Bank Lake Creek.
Well, I'm obviously, I kind of geek out on this stuff, but next steps is something that's kind of fun and exciting that we have in the works, is a collaboration with the US EPA research office that's across the way in Cincinnati. We have access to those experts, and we've kind of partnered up with them, and I, said, use this as our testing ground, so they do some research projects in here, and we're in the middle of a third research project. And I don't know if other watersheds have access to this kind of stuff, but it's pretty incredible. They are right now doing a study on looking at the bacteria within Bank Lake Creek, and with their DNA analysis, they can go in and tell whether it's from an avian source, a canine source, a human source, or cattle or deer. And so this source tracking is what they call it. We are going to have such an improved understanding of where the pollution comes from in Bank Lake Creek, and I'm very excited about that. So we'll finish up sampling for that next year, and then hopefully just using research to drive our decision making, I think, is our big thing. We want to make the best decisions we can, the most effective ways to address pollution in the creek. So I think that's the thing I'm really looking forward to, is kind of that cutting edge research, and seeing how it comes out, and seeing if we can get some good data out of it.
That's fantastic. It's just science in action. It's, collecting data and then making management decisions based on that data. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And I know that you all will continue with all the energy that you've got going on in the watershed. So, Nicole, I am just in awe of the work that you all do in your watershed, and you're a legend among watershed coordinators and watershed professionals. But I am going to ask you one final question. It's not a trick question, so don't feel cornered. But I am curious what your favorite waterway is in Kentucky.
I don't have to answer Bank Lake Creek, isn't that? I think that is a trick question.
I mean, maybe.
If it wasn't Bank Lake Creek, I mean, you hear me talk about connecting people to waterways, I think that anytime you get people to experience or to get near water, I think is good. So, up here, the Ohio River, you have to drive across it, so for people that might not necessarily be out hiking or, out in the woods, to be able to experience nature out there, it's anything to bring it into where we are and to get more people engaged with it, I think would be a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful sentiment. I think I'm sure you do a lot of highway hydrology also, that as you're driving, you're looking at landscapes and thinking about what's going to happen when it rains, or sometimes, people don't like rainy days, but it's a great time to go and understand your watershed is just to look around while it's raining and see the natural flow of water. So, yeah, but thank you so much for being my guest today. And we've learned so much about your watershed, and just really appreciate it, and keep up the great work that you've been doing.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Bravo.
Wow, Nicole, impressive work up there.
Isn't she a rock
Definitely.
star? I'm telling
Yes.
No, inspiring, really. Yeah, it's awesome. Um,
Oh, they also said Amanda does a great interview. Woohoo!
you. Well, I have really easy folks to interview. They've got
Oh.
lots of stuff. I don't have to
It
drag
makes
it out
it
of them.
easier when
Yeah, it
you have a
does.
lot to talk about.
It
Yes,
Yeah,
it
that's
does.
It does.
obvious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
It's
thank
neat.
you, Nicole, for all the work that you're doing and for, being on the show today. We
Yeah,
greatly appreciate that. And if you have any updates ever, let us know and we'll
sure.
get you back on.
Sounds good. Thank you for letting me share.
No,
Yeah,
good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Good stuff. Keep up the great work. Really, it's awesome.
Will
yes.
do.
Thank you, Dr. Gumbert, for doing that. And
As
Absolutely.
always,
and
yeah,
Thanks.
so good.
yes, thank you.
Excellent, Renee. What a great program.
It was. It
Yeah.
really was. Yes. We had a lot of good guests that we could, talk about and talk to, and Wings of Kentucky.
Learned
And
about the woodcock. Yeah.
Woodcocks, there's a cute little bird, we talked about them for quite a while and that was okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and then some watershed information,
With the first timer,
Yes.
Nicole was awesome. She really
Mhm.
was really good. So always appreciate new guests. But Dr. Gumbert, as always, does such a good job too.
She
So
does.
she's such a great resource we have here in our department. So glad that her and her water and soil team are part of Forestry Natural Resources Extension.
Exactly. We've been, we've had a lot of programs with her, but then, finally we brought her over, I guess, to the dark side.
It makes perfect sense. It
It
helps
does,
really
right?
round out our offerings. But yeah, but folks, again, this program's for you. So if there's things that you're dealing with in your woodlands or wildlife or your watershed, let us know because others probably are as well, and we can all learn together. So Renee's such a bulldog on finding good guests for us. So if there's a topic that you've not seen here on the program, let us know. We want to kind of serve you any way we can, and we can all learn together.
Yeah, you have to remember that I have one program a week, so I'm sometimes most of the time 2 topics a week. So, we've got to keep that going, and we're never in any kind of danger of not having a topic. But it's always nice to know what you all want, because that's why we're doing this show. Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be doing this show if it wasn't for you. So we really greatly appreciate that. And Billy, we also appreciated you, and Dr. Gumbert doing the control burn information.
Sure.
We had a lot of
Yeah.
questions
No,
about that.
yeah, take advantage of that, folks. Really, it's a great opportunity, and get a group together, right? And that it's a lot more fun when you kind of know everybody there, and you're in that same community, and you may work in the same geographic area. So it makes good sense that you all could be out there on the fire lines together too down the road. So
Definitely. All right. So if you do have any ideas, go to fromthewoodstoday.com and there's a little survey there. You can submit your ideas or any kind of show information that you have. And every show we've ever done is listed on there as well. Like we've said several times, you can binge watch us for days if you want to. But we would appreciate you getting us information. If you see something in your woods, you can actually put a little picture of it.
Yeah.
I know you could just attach that and send it to us.
And we might feature it. Yeah, it'd be cool. Yeah.
I had a one topic last week. Somebody asked, and I've already got it in the lineup.
Oh, we love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So give me ideas. There, I'm trying, everything we can possibly do out there. As long as it has something to do with woods, water, or wildlife, we're good.
Yeah. All right. Well, a great program. And again, folks, thank you all for being with us. We certainly do appreciate it.
All right. We will see you all next week. Take care.
Bye, everyone.